Have you ever felt trapped in your own mind? Like no matter what you do, the thoughts just keep coming? The anxiety, the overwhelm, the constant looping that you can't seem to think your way out of. That's where Becca found herself. But what shifted for her wasn't more effort, it was seeing something that changed how she related to all of it. And what she shares in this conversation might completely change how you see your own mind too. Becca, I just want to ask you, what is it that you do? Maybe you could share a little bit for my listeners, and how do you help people?
Oh, I'd love to. So I'm a certified change coach. I was trained by Dr. Amy Johnson in the Little School of Big Change, like yourself. And I set up my coaching practice, The Missing Piece. I think it was around about 5 years ago, 4 years maybe. I lose track of time. And I basically set it up because I just had such a pull to help others in the way that I was helped. And so I coach people in lots of different ways, predominantly one-to-one, and I show them how they can have a completely different experience of life and be less in their head and more in life. And so, put simply, that's what I do. I work face-to-face with people and online. I do talks as well, and I have a podcast, The Thought Trap,
which is wonderful. We were just sharing how I love particularly all of it, but the music as well. It's just great. It really goes with the theme. It's so light-hearted, isn't it? But it's in a way like how we can make things heavy, I suppose. That's what we're talking about. But I'm saying it doesn't have to be like that. It's all the mind created.
Yeah. I mean, it was an interesting process. And actually today marks a whole year of doing the Thought Trap. So today is my 52nd episode that went live today. I mean,
wow.
It blows my mind. Yeah. So really, I'm really proud of myself. I really am, because it's not easy to be consistent. And actually, the whole podcast today is around consistency.
Oh, that's an interesting word for my listeners. The consistency can be a stick that we beat ourselves up with, in terms of it's quite tricky sometimes for people with ADHD to be consistent. Becca, can I ask you, what led you to want to help people, particularly with the work that you do with around anxiety, overwhelm, overthinking, that kind of thing?
Oh, are you sitting tight? So next week I'll be 45, and I would say from the age of about 4, I have worried. And so I remember from a really, really, like I say, a young age, just really overthinking things. And at the time, I didn't think I was overthinking. I just thought that was me. I thought it was my personality. I thought it made me a very, very conscientious and kind person, and actually quite responsible, because I really worried about all the things that could go wrong. But so pretty much for a very, very long time, that was kind of my experience. And then I had my children, and I came out of a very busy job. I worked in banking as a financial planner, and I'd always worked with figures, which is really, really interesting because my mind was so busy, and I can see that it gave my mind something to do. And so when I came out of that sort of industry and had my children, I was in a really fortunate position that I didn't need to work straight away. I could enjoy them. But guess what? My mind just got really busy. Well, it had always been busy, but I think it had been satisfied with the figures and, sort of planning weddings and doing all those sorts of things. But all of a sudden, I didn't need to think about those things so much. And my mind decided that it needed a job to do. So it started worrying, and it worried more and more. And around about, I think it was around 10 years ago, it got to a point that it was definitely impacting me physically. And so being the person I am, I was like, I am not going to suffer with this. And if I could win a medal for how much I really, really tried to fix myself, which we can talk about in a bit because I was never broken in the first place, but it felt like that. And so I had a massive journey of seeing lots and lots of different professionals and holistic modalities to feel better. And I don't think there is anything I didn't try. I was hypnotized. I saw a psychotherapist that said they couldn't help me and they'd have to refer me. I was on medication for a bit. I tried lots of different things, but at the same time, I was really, really functioning. So I was still being mom. You know, I was still on the outside doing okay, but on the inside, I just didn't feel well at all. And I had a lot of physical pain, actually. I had a lot of back pain. I had a lot of mouth pain. And I was constantly trying to fix the physical pain. So as well as feeling very overwhelmed in my mind, I would then be seeing things like chiropractors. I had MRI scans, and I had no idea that all of that was showing up as anxiety in my body. And so it was like a vicious circle because I was worried that there was something more serious wrong with me. I developed, I guess, what you would call health anxiety, which I can see now is just more thinking that I was listening to. And so I just went back and forth to the doctors that were very used to seeing me, actually. I think they could almost like keep a space in the waiting room ready for me. And I just really wanted to help myself. And I kind of really have so much compassion for that part of me because I just wanted to feel better. And I came across, a lady called Nicola Bird, who's based in the UK. And at the time I read her book and I just felt like something was resonating. And I was pulled into that whole arena. And then I came across Dr. Amy Johnson and I did her course and I began to just feel better. I began to realize that I wasn't on my own and I started to change, not overnight. And actually, the more I relaxed into it and decided that this isn't on me, I just need to see what happens. I just thought, I just can't believe how different I feel. And so I was like, right, I need to train as a change coach. And there was this opportunity to do so because I didn't want anyone to suffer in the way that I did. Like, I just felt like, I know this sounds really dramatic. I wanted to change the world of mental health. And I still do. Like, I just want everybody to know, like, what's available. And we don't have to listen to our mind in the same way. Because there were days that I would just try and sleep to feel better. Because it was so busy. Like, I couldn't hear anything apart from a ton of thinking at the time. It didn't look like thinking. It looked like reality. But I had a stream of chatter in my mind that was telling me all these horrible things. And I worked really hard to try and stop those things from happening. And even talking about it now makes me feel quite emotional because I was just doing the best I could. And so, you know, it feels still like the beginning for me because I still want to reach so many people. And that's why I started my podcast a year ago. And so, yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Oh, it totally does. And it's making me feel a bit emotional, actually, because especially when you said you have so much compassion for that part of you, that younger part of you, that you're obviously not that much younger, but it sounds like you almost two different people. Like there was the before and the after almost.
Do you know what there is? It does feel like that. But equally, what I want to make really, really clear to your listeners is that my mind can still get busy. I think there's an illusion or this kind of belief that it just needs to disappear. And then suddenly, as a coach now, I don't ever get overwhelmed because that's not the truth. The difference is I don't stay there in the same way. I know what's causing it. And so, you know, we can talk about what that looks like now, but you know, I am sitting in uncertainty at times. My children are getting older. They're becoming more independent. And there's so much uncertainty, but life is uncertain. And I'm really learning to live in that uncomfortable feeling that actually is nowhere near as bad as our mind says it is. It really isn't. But we can talk about that more, because I just think if we get used to being in uncertainty more, the more that we're able to be with those uncomfortable feelings, the more we see. And in short, what I used to do, and I never saw this at the time, was to stay in thought because it was familiar and it distracted me. And even though I didn't want my mind to stop, it was a habit. And it was a habit of thought. And I had no idea years ago that's all it was. And so that's something that I want people to really notice, the habitual nature. And we're not choosing to do that necessarily. It's just familiar. It's what we've always done. But there is so much more available when you look in this direction.
Yeah. Hello. I am just going to pop in here and let you know about my group coaching program, which is called The Academy. The Academy is an inspiring and supportive space where I coach like-minded ADHDers. We explore everything about living with ADHD, and you will receive personal coaching and support directly from me. I've been through the challenges of ADHD myself, and I love sharing the lessons that I've learned to help make your life easier. So I'd love for you to come and join our amazing ADHD community and learn and grow together. There's a link down below to join, and I hope to see you soon. Wow, I love so many things about what you're saying, which way to go. I think I love the uncertainty thing. That was something I was just talking about in the episode I just recorded about how our mind wants to create certainty. I still can't say certainty. And it's
a tricky
kind of
word.
doing that. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, I would love to go into that a bit more about what you see about that, then about this uncertainty and what the mind's trying to do, and how you see that now maybe.
Well, I see like the mind as like almost like somebody that's like a best friend, a mother figure, a protector, whatever you want to call it. And I think it is really personal. It is a protector. I mean, to keep it really simple, and I know you know this, but it's just to be, you know what? It's so useful just to keep on hearing this. I could hear this every single day to be reminded. Yeah. And that's just that the mind's only job is to keep us physically alive. That is it. But it's going way above what it should be doing. It's getting proper chopsy, and we're just listening to it. And when we listen to it, we suffer. It's as simple as that. And we don't necessarily choose whether we listen to it or not because I was listening to it. But it gets to a point that when you start to really see that that's all the mind's doing by really looking to your own experience, then you can't help but see the sheer nonsense of it. So to keep it simple, how I describe this is the mind is trying to fill the gaps by creating something that's a solution or along those lines. So you feel better. So you feel more certain. But it's all just made up, because the truth is, once that certainty and imagination is created, another problem will just come in, and it's just like whack-a-mole. Like Dr. Amy Johnson used to say, it's constant. I got to the point that it was like, and I would like have like 10 new worries a day. And I couldn't neutralize those worries enough with all the safety that my mind was giving me, that I was beginning to just see, well, what can I do? So I think it's just really useful just to see that it's sort of filling in the gaps.
Yeah. I love what you're saying there about the whack-a-mole, and you had 10 worries, and even if you'd managed to whack them all down, another one's going to pop up, or another new 10 fresh ones. And that's it's kind of making me think about how this thing about certainty is just an illusion, because I don't know, what would you say about that, the fact that there is no certainty with anything, but our mind wants it to be certain, so it's kind of trying to get something that's ultimately impossible. Well, I don't know. That's how I see it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's just such an innocent process that the mind does.
Yeah.
Because it thinks, it doesn't care if it's real or not. It just fills the gaps in. And so I talk about we're either in imagination or we're in the now. and I spent a lot of time in imagination. And so I can now see where my attention is. I can see, not always, when I'm feeling in a low mood and the chips are down and I'm having a really crap day. No, it all looks bloody real, right? However, I don't stay there in the same way. I know that I perhaps need an early night or a bath or watch a movie. I don't need to think the heck out of it to find a solution, because I know that way is not the way, but it's where my mind would want to go, but you end up just being in a spiral. So it sounds complicated, but it's really not. It's actually very simple, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I know you know this.
Well, no, I mean, I think it would be great, because I think a lot of my listeners probably might be thinking, well, it is complicated. What do you mean? So, can you explain then how you see it? What is this simplicity that you're talking about?
Well, before, there's something that's just coming up for me, if you don't mind, going back to uncertainty, is that the mind says uncertainty is really uncomfortable. And it's actually not. Being uncomfortable is being on all these imagined situations because they're not happening. That's uncomfortable. When we're in a situation that's real, we just know what to do. We don't need to plan ahead. And I know that's really obvious, but it's not to a worrier.
No.
Right? It's really not. And so I've learned to see that future me can work it out when I get there, which means that there's really nothing to do, which is absolutely crazy for a mind, because it's like, no, I want to help you. I'm like, oh, it's like a toddler, like almost pulling at you to help you cook. And you're like, oh, you end up getting all the flour everywhere. And it's all so innocent. And it's not that we need to dismiss the mind. The mind can be useful, but it's so limited. And so the simplicity piece is being, I guess, really open to the fact that there's something going on here more than this chatty mind. And to keep listening to these sorts of conversations like your podcast, where people will just start to resonate with this. And what I love about your podcast is that you have a variety of people on, and I know you have solo episodes too, and it's almost like just immersing yourself in this sort of conversation just does something. It does the heavy lifting, because we are bombarded with having to do things to feel better. So I think they got to a point, I don't know, but I think it did get to a point I kind of gave up. I thought, oh, sod it, I'm just going to have to be a worrier. This is just who I am. And I gave up because there was such a journey of doing so much and it didn't have an impact, that I thought, well, if anyone's going to solve it, it's going to be me, because I'm like a dog with a bone.
Yeah.
So I dropped my bone and just probably poured myself a gin and tonic and thought, sod it. And then I started realizing that actually I don't have to do anything. I could rely on life so much more than I thought I could.
Can you say more about that? Because you kind of are pointing at that a little bit, about how, there is, there's something more than the mind, I think you said. What is that? What do you see is there?
Yeah, I mean, something I want to say is like, it sounds so like spiritual and woo-woo. Like that's how it looked to me initially. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure. And I wasn't open to it for quite a few years, even when I was exposed to this conversation, because I just wasn't prepared to look. And then I actually decided that I just needed to look around me, because I think we innocently just walk around in tunnel vision, and we don't do it purposely. I just think we have this really narrowed view of the world. And I started almost being my best explorer and investigator, because I had nothing to lose, right? I had nothing to lose. And so I started to just look around me and notice things simply like birds in the garden, just knowing what to do, or being around my children when there was a problem and not getting in their way and noticing they had some really good ideas without me bowling in with like fix it mode. And noticing if me and my husband disagreed over something, what if I just didn't give my point of view and I just sort of walked away and just like swallowed it and just waited to see what happened. He'd end up coming around to my way of thinking. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not needed in the same way as I thought I was. What's going on here? And then it just became so bloody obvious. There was just things around me that was just very, very obvious that I don't need to be in control in the way I think I do. And I always use this analogy of when action needs to be taken, we just do it through absence of thought. And simple examples like if an animal runs out in the road, like a big animal, little ones, I know I don't run animals over on a regular basis, but if they're really little, apparently you just take them down, don't you? Which I'm not a fan of. But naturally, if something was to run out in the road, you would just brake. They wouldn't think, shall I brake?
No.
Oh, shall I brake? It just action happens. If you've got a small child and they run off and close to a main road, you just grab them. You don't think, oh, I think I need to grab that child. And this happens all the time and no one talks about it. And so I can really see, and I think what helps being a coach and doing talks and even speaking now, I just allow the words to come through. I don't get in my head over it. And I think what we've innocently done is just got really, really absorbed in the chatter of the mind, thinking that's us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can see that there's just so much more going on. And it's really hard to describe. I'm curious, like, how do you see it?
Well, yeah, I think that, like exactly what you said, I was stuck in my mind. I thought that I was my mind, like literally. It's like saying to a fish, "What's the water like?" I'd be like, "Well, what water?" Because I didn't realize there was anything other than thoughts. I'm the thoughts. The thoughts are me, and I don't see it that way anymore. No, I realize that the mind is a very important part of us, but it's not all of us. There is, like you said, it can be extremely useful, and it's very, and I think for, especially my listeners with ADHD, we have incredible minds, in terms of what we can do with them, like the creativity and inventing and kind of problem solving, analyzing, all those things. And it's not who we are. So I think that's what I see, that we are so much more. And even, we've got our heart, there's so much kind of going on with our heart now. They talk, not now as if it's only just happened. It's always happened. But
Yeah.
the research now about that, the intelligence of us is more, it's everywhere. But also even if we're just looking at our body, is the gut also, and the heart, and just the wisdom that we in the universe, I suppose, that we are then somehow incorporating into this physical form and interpreting it. So I suppose that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the way you just described that. It's always so fresh when you hear it from different perspectives. And if you had asked me that question maybe tomorrow, it'd be different again. It's kind of what comes up. But I think what's so useful, and I can't help but want to share useful things for people to like look at, and that is just look around you. Look at the trees, look at the birds, look at how babies are just made within us. We don't have to get involved. Yes, we need to look after ourselves and, eat good things and those sorts of things. But really all the heavy lifting's done, isn't it? I just don't know how we can be so far removed from that. Many years ago, that part of the brain wasn't even online. There was just action that needed to be taken. And I just think it's got really sophisticated, which it will do because it's a machine. And I think it's just got really sophisticated, and we just listen to it, and we only suffer when we listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, my audience have ADHD, and they particularly, can really have, sort of a lot of overthinking and getting caught in lots of loops of rumination and things like overwhelm. And so I think, some of them might be listening and thinking, well, it's all very well, all this spiritual woo woo stuff, but then I can't switch my brain off. Like, how do I do that? Like, what do I do? What would you say to those people that might be thinking that, ironically?
Yeah. Well, that was me. That was me. So
Yeah.
I'd love to speak to that. The the loop thing was like I was like the best looper in town, like loopity loop. Like they could have called me Loopy Loo. Like that's all I did. Like and I used to almost resist the loops coming up. Not purposely. It was just like because I would literally, honestly, be going out for dinner with friends and a loop would get in and it would be like I didn't want to go anymore. I'd still go, but I'd end up crying and no one knew why I was crying. And it was just so physically real for me. And so the first thing I'd want to say is it's not easy being in that loop because we're feeling that as if it's happening because loops are generally around stuff that isn't really happening in that exact moment. Like when we look to our exact moment, there's not a lot going on. That's why we tend to go in our heads. But it's really, honestly, not that we have to suddenly have a spiritual viewpoint. I think it's so much simpler than that. I think it's seeing the loop for what it is. It's seeing it. And the fact that if you're even calling it a loop or seeing it as a loop means that you're not creating it, right? I think it looks like we're creating it. I think that's really, really important. But if we were creating it, we would stop it. And I think that's massive because we can't stop our mind doing what our mind does. And I think trying to stop it, and I think there's still a lot out there that looks like we can,
Yeah.
or even adding more thought in,
Yeah.
sort of reframing thoughts, having better thoughts, neutralizing thoughts. I've done it all. And all that is that typical snow globe of just having more thinking. And so it feels compulsive. Like for me, it felt compulsive to want to go in the loop and have a little play in the loopity loop. But that's what it feels like, right?
Well,
That's what it felt like for me.
and I do think, like, I'm just going to kind of interject here because when you're talking about this loop and it feels almost like you're saying it felt good, like somehow it was satisfying something. And I have seen this with ADHDers that because our brains crave dopamine and stimulation because they're lacking that. And so this is something that I think some of my listeners might relate to because, and I've seen some research on this recently that actually the over, because there is a lot of overthinking and rumination, particularly with ADHDers, and it isn't just because of what people might think. I think there's another thing that I'd heard recently was that it's a lot of like craving the stimulation, and actually even though it doesn't really feel good, the brain is kind of getting a bit of like dopamine satisfaction from it because it's giving the stimulation. Otherwise it's sort of boring. Like, I don't know, what would you say to that? Is there anything you see about that?
Yeah, that's interesting you say that because it sounds really like contradictory. Like, what do you mean I like doing it? It's not that you like doing it. It's just a
No.
familiar place to go.
Yeah.
And that makes sense what you're saying about the dopamine and stuff. And it might be quite interesting for me to share at this point that my coping mechanism to break the loop was reassurance. And so that there's anyone listening that use reassurance as the thing to break the loop, then you're not alone because that's what I did. And I see it all the time with clients. And so essentially, if I had a worry, I would try and ask for reassurance from a friend or family member or whatever. And sometimes it did break the loop because they made me feel better. So the loop was almost broken. But what I was doing was needing reassurance each time. And actually, when I really stepped back, and I can see this now, perhaps not so much at the time, but I was like, they don't even know. Like, they're making this stuff up, like, to make me feel better. They don't even know. And I began to see through it, like, like a magic trick, like, how it's done. And it just began to not feel so heavy. And so I think maybe people are trying to stop their mind from chatting. And so what they're feeling is the resistance to what is. And I think that is painful. So it's really looking to the loop and looking towards thought and chucking it almost on the table and like pulling it out like an old school map. That's what I've got. And going, what the frick is this? Like, what is going on here? Like, what is this? And that's something like you don't have to do alone. It's like by listening to this sort of conversation, all the heavy lifting just happens. It wasn't like we need to do anything particular, just to be open and be curious. And that sometimes feels not enough to some people, because I didn't feel like it felt enough to me just to be curious. But I would ask yourself this question. This is for your audience. Like, what you're doing now, what is it that you're doing now? And is it helping? If not, what have you got to lose?
So in a way, are you saying that rather than kind of fixing thought with more thought, kind of step out of it a little bit and then how would they do that though? How would they, when you're in that thought, how do you kind of step or almost know that, there's that sort of distance between you and the thoughts? What would you say? Is there any kind of things that have helped you to do that?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of a really good example. It's when a thought comes in, which I'll point out here is we're not choosing. Because if we were choosing it, then we would choose a better one, right? We'd choose a really fun one. We wouldn't choose the one that came in. It's the thinking that's then added to that. So there's thought, and then there's thinking about the thought. If we didn't have the thinking about the thought will just move through.
Yeah.
But that's what keeps it. So that's not answering your question, but I think it's useful to just see the process play out. I'd be really curious about the process playing out rather than anything to do. It's seeing it from an exploratory perspective. I use an acronym called PEEP, which is to look.
Yeah.
And it's play, explore, experiment, play. You don't even have to write that down, because if I had to do something in particular, I wouldn't keep it up because I'm not consistent, hence today's episode that I did today. So it's just I just stopped putting so much bloody pressure on myself and just started to metaphorically look at what's going on, even if that meant more thinking was coming in. Oh, so a thought's come in my head and now I'm thinking about it. And, at times I wrote it down. And when you write something down, it felt useful because I could kind of see it, but not because I needed to do some kind of technique. It was just seeing they were almost like thought babies that were being created off the back of one thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think what's so useful is so much simpler than that. And it's to bring our attention to presence. And you mentioned the creative nature of a lot of your listeners. And I love the way Martha Beck talks about this because she talks about creativity being the way through. Now, that's not her words, that's just my interpretation. And so I've recently really started enjoying baking. And it does keep me present. Like if you'd have said to me, go and meditate, it's just not my thing. And that's absolutely fine. So it's finding your thing that just keeps you in reality, and let your mind come with, like, rock on, like, come into the kitchen, worry with me as I'm making this. But when you notice your attention's on your thinking, bring your attention onto the, like, the feeling of the flour and the smell of the food. Like, you find your thing, but each time you notice your attention, it's to simply bring it back to what you're doing in that moment. And I don't know, like, it just then just happens automatically. That's how it looks to me. I drive along now and don't even have the radio on and just spend time looking at the view. I would never have done that. I look outwards rather than inwards now. But I haven't done that. It's just through being open and turning up to these sorts of conversations and looking for myself.
Yeah. It sounds like really what you're saying is we just be in this moment, and that's all we have really. The past is a memory really, isn't it? And the future's our imagination. So we only ever really have this present moment, but we spend most of our life, ironically, in the thinking that we're in the future and worrying about it, or overthinking it, like we've been talking about for most of this episode. But actually, when we were talking about the simplicity, to bring it back to the simplicity, it sounds like what you're saying is the simplicity is we don't need to do that. And it might, we're going to have thoughts, but we don't need to have more thought babies. We can just know that the thoughts will come and go, and we can be in this present moment exactly as it is. And it's only the judgment about that kind of makes it a problem. What would
Yeah,
you say?
Yeah, I think that when we're in the present moment as well, we have so much more access to, like, whatever that is reliable. That's like a really rubbish way of describing it. But I hear my gut and I hear my wisdom when I'm less in thought. So it doesn't look to me that putting my attention there is that useful. So what I mean by that is when I give more attention to thought, it just gets really messy and I feel really shit. And the thing is, I feel really, really shit because I'm feeling the imagination. And so, if I had a busy mind and I was to sit in the garden for a moment, in the past, I would be like, right, I need to do this. Shall I do that? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Now I can see that that's where my attention isn't going to get me the solution. That analysing piece isn't going to get me anywhere. So how I look at it is that I will just know what to do when I leave it the frick alone. And actually, when you start playing with that, I can't get over how much amazing stuff comes through. And it's not coming from my mind, believe me, because my mind is really complex and silly. Like, it's coming from such a more grounded place. And I think I really played with it in other people before I was prepared to really look at it in myself. And that, like, I mean, not that we're going in that direction now, but that's been really useful from my perspective about being a parent, because that's a whole field of doing the right thing, knowing what to do, and etc. As I can see that in my children, so why wouldn't I have it too? And so I guess my invitation would be to invite people to look in areas that you're not trying to change.
What do you mean by that?
Like, I don't know, like say somebody's got a habit of, I don't know, like an overeating habit, just say,
Yeah.
then we spend a lot of time in that arena to try and, like, stop overeating and stuff. But how about just be curious about something that's not so kind of important to you? And I'm trying to think of an example. Maybe noticing somebody in your life, whether it's a partner, a child, a co-worker, that when you sort of move away, they just kind of become more calm, or when you don't get so involved, it sorts itself out. Like, I think and I speak for myself, but I can't help but hear this. I know this is going to impact other people. Is that when you've got a busy mind, you want to control. Like control's a big thing. And it doesn't look like control, but it is. It's disguised. Like I was doing certain things because I knew that would make me feel better because it was creating certainty again.
That, yeah, and that reassurance that you were saying you were seeking from other people, in a way, maybe that was all the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think we've talked a lot about mind and stuff, but we've just got to get better feelers. We've got to get better at feeling feelings and knowing that they don't last. Like I had a huge spell of panic attacks, and it felt pretty regular. And I think it got to a point that I was like, bring it on. Come on then, do your worst. But before that, it wasn't like that. It was really, really hard. And but I didn't want to feel the feelings that were coming up because they felt so awful. But when I got a little bit done and was like, just bring it on, it really did just feel like a rush of energy that moved through, like the weather. And it didn't last anywhere near as much. And interestingly, as soon as I started allowing it, they just didn't turn up in the same way. There's so much energy behind overwhelm and anxiety physically, but using that as an opportunity to feel is definitely somewhere I would point someone to.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought this up, because actually I wanted to kind of talk about emotions a bit more, because again, my audience with ADHD, emotional regulation, or emotional dysregulation rather, can be a really big thing. It's not part of the diagnostic criteria, but it should be, really, because it seems to be, like one of the main things that comes up for people with ADHD, that they feel overwhelmed by their emotions, and very intense emotions. The nervous system can be highly sensitive. And so what about if some of my audience may be thinking, oh, well, it's too intense. I don't know. How do I sit with these really difficult emotions? And so I'm just wondering how you could, speak to them.
Yeah, I know you've said this before, definitely. Like this is, emotion is energy in motion. It's just what's moving through. But it doesn't feel like that. That isn't our experience. We think it means something about us. So if the emotion's anger, we think it means that we're an angry person. But it's to be really like keeping this really foundational. What is an emotion? It's energy that's moving through. We're not choosing it, which means it's not ours to claim. The mind calls it anger, sadness, anxiety, excitement. It's all just normal. Like it is just sensation. So I'm not really sure that any regulation needs to happen. All emotions are there and safe, because that's the other thing as well. Like I can't feel anxious because it feels horrible and it's not safe. Like it's not okay to feel this. I went through a stage of, I felt anxious so much. I was like, oh my God, I must just be like disrupting my whole system and I'm going to be really ill, because I kept on reading that stress is the biggest killer. Well, that's going to be, keeping that
Yeah.
cycle going.
I mean, yeah, that's the biggest vicious cycle ever, isn't it? So, like, I can't be stressed. This is really dangerous. And feeling stressed about that, that
Yeah.
is just the irony, really, is ridiculous, isn't it? But yeah, it is what we do as humans. I heard this actually from somebody that Amy Johnson had actually on her one of her episodes. Came in and did a bit of a talk, and he said that the phrase "let it go" is bandied about so much. Just let it go, let it go, as if we know, how do we even do that? How do we let something go? Is this a thing to do? So I struggled with that my whole life. Like, I don't know how to let it go. I feel, I've got all these intense emotions. How do I let them go? Or I've got all these thoughts. How do I let them go? And so So what I love about let it be, it's just one little word, isn't it? But it changes everything because there isn't anything to do. It's, you don't have to let anything go. It's let it be.
Yeah. And the other thing as well that I think is really useful is to notice all the chatter that comes with emotions. Like, you know, if you've had a really bad day, you just feel like you've taken it out on those around you. The suffering tends to come in when you just feel really shit about that. Like, I think I spent a lot of time in that place, being really hard on myself. Now I can see that I was not being hard on myself. My mind was being hard on myself and I was listening to it. But there's something I can really see now, and that is that things are always how they were going to be. And I think, how can they not be what they were going to be? And I think we sometimes get really absorbed in it should have been different, but it can't be.
No.
Like, so I think there's so much compassion that comes up. Like, when I just I'm allowed to feel angry. I'm allowed to feel frustrated. It's all part of the human experience. And I think, especially, you know, when I had young children, I think I really tried to just be this perfect version for them because I wanted them to be, I didn't want them to see me frustrated or upset or angry. And I'm like, surely that gives them permission to be flipping human too. And so I think we're here to experience it all. And so it's really having eyes for it can never be any different than what it was. And I always think there's a bigger picture at play. And what I mean by that is roads are always leading a certain way and we can't see the future. So sometimes when we do something and we're like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, there's some intelligence in all of it. And that actually makes me, I can physically feel the excitement of that because I know that to be the absolute truth.
How do you know that?
It's a felt sense because I kind of always wanted things to be kind of really like my ducks in a row. Then if all my ducks are in a row, I'd be okay. But it's so exhausting. Like, I don't know whether I just got to a point where I didn't care so much. I just live in the messiness of it and realize I begin to see that I'm actually okay no matter what.
Yeah.
But really, I think it's, you know, as I get older, I see that things can be hard, but I can still be okay with that. You know, like, and when I say okay, that doesn't mean that I feel amazing all the time. It just means that I'm not scared of how I'm feeling in any moment because I know it won't last ever.
Yeah. It sounds like, well, what I'm hearing a bit is that there's this kind of deep, bigger intelligence that is more than just our mind and our, you know, this human form that we have that we don't even know about. And it's always there. It's and you're and it's trusting that, knowing that we don't actually have to do anything.
No, and it's trusting it, but in a playful way. Like, I don't think we trust anything overnight.
Yeah.
It's just a gradual process, and it's being open to the process, and maybe looking to life more to kind of invite us to do that. Like, what can life show me? And I think what I've noticed now, the more I have this sort of way of seeing things, perspective shift, I guess, I can see this was always at play. And I'm like, oh my God, how did I not miss this? How did I miss this? Sorry. How the heck did I miss this? It's so flipping obvious when you see it.
Yeah. Well, can you just explain that a little bit more? What is so flipping obvious? What if I go, you know,
But it's
to what if people are going, what do you mean?
that it's not on me. It's not on me to make everybody feel okay, or it's on me to work things out. I can enjoy this ride more. I think I just spent so much time trying to rearrange the furniture, metaphorically.
Yeah.
Because I just thought everything, I don't know. I thought like maybe everything needs to be not perfect. That's not the right word, but everything sort of needs to be a certain way for everyone to be okay. When
Yeah.
I can see that suffering in others is bringing them something too. We don't like to see people around us suffering, obviously, but there's something that's supporting them in the same way supported me. Like, and I felt that through the hardship of anxiety and really struggling and being crippled with it, I guess. So it's coming from hindsight now, but I must have just started to look to that myself. Please ask me another question that makes that more clear, because I still feel that people could be listening and thinking, yeah, but what do you mean? But
No, I think
stop.
you said it really well, actually. What I'm hearing is that it was never on you to do anything. That includes trying to make other people feel better or feel safe. It's not on any of us as humans to do that. And you're seeing that. That's what I'm hearing you say, that it's just to let it be again. Let it be. There's nothing we have to do. And what you were saying earlier, to sort of bring that in, that everything happens exactly as it's supposed to happen. It couldn't not happen like that. And so it's only when we look back and think, oh, it shouldn't have been like that, or I should have done this, or this person I should be helping them, or and it's that letting that all, don't have to do any of that. We can just be in the moment, and what happens. Yes, we can make decisions. Yes, we can plan for things, and there are plans to be made, but we don't need to be in those plans. We could just make them, and then that's it. And then the plans will come true when we do it. So I'm probably, yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that? Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, what you've just shared is that the stories will still come. But it's not that they have to go away. You just begin to see more and more that they are just stories.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like I used to have this pressure before I used to go on holiday. Oh, I want to just have a clear mind. I don't want to be worrying about anything. I want to like feel all right. And now I'm like, oh, you can come. You can come. You've got your own suitcase, mate.
Love it.
Just pack treats. Like you can come. And I know that sounds really silly, but it was almost like when I realized that it doesn't need to be gone for me to be okay.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't show up in the same way as it used to now, because I allow it to be there. I'm not trying to stop it. I'm not questioning it in the same way. I know it means nothing about me. It's very impersonal. It's just a stream of thinking that I haven't chosen, that I identified with for a long time. But who I am is so much more than that. And I can really feel that in my heart. And that's where it starts to just be a felt sense rather than an intellectual thing.
Yeah. Absolutely, isn't it? That, I think that's it. It's for any of my listeners that might be hearing this and not maybe connecting with everything we're saying. We're not saying believe us, are we? We're saying look for yourself and see where some of the things that we have been talking about, like maybe being in the present moment, maybe realizing, maybe you don't have to do the thing where you thought you had to control something. Maybe see what happens if you don't. So all of it is just trying it out, isn't it? And it's not saying we know the truth and believe us, because that didn't work for me either. And it sounds like it didn't work for you. It's only
No.
when we feel it as a felt sense, like you say, and then that's where the wisdom is there, because it's not in our mind. We can't intellectualize it, because the brain is going to like argue it back and get into the thought loops again. It's more about how do we, just see it in a different way, isn't it? Like from all our senses, from all our kind of, different perspective that isn't really just about the mind at all.
Yeah, and the mind going into thought, going into, it's familiar, but it's distracting us from feeling. Thought distracts us from feeling. And so that's when it loops, because that's the other thing as well. Like I started noticing very familiar loops. I'm like, maybe this is an invitation to get into my body and start feeling some of this stuff. And I do that in a really like ad hoc way. I don't have a set practice. If somebody tells me to do something, I'm going to do the opposite. So I tend to do it when it feels right. If I'm having a coffee and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can feel some fluttering in my tummy or whatever, I just feel into that without the story, because the story is the distraction to move you away from feeling. But the more you feel into what is, the more just opens up for you. And so I think what's really hard sometimes is that we are taught through our educational system to learn and apply. And this is the absolute opposite. So it's going to feel a little bit different, which is why it's just to sit back and listen to it and just see what resonates.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, Becca, I think I'm going to say thank you so much for everything you've shared. It's been incredible, and I really feel my listeners are going to get a lot out of this conversation. I just want to ask you before we end, though, what if people really want to work with you or want to find out more about what you do, how can they reach you? How can they get hold of you?
Okay, so to go on my website, which is beccagardner.com. I'm sure you put the information in the show notes. But actually listen to my podcast, start to get a feel of me. I think that can be really, really useful. Like I say, there's 52 episodes. They're not in any set order. You're on it, aren't you,
I
with me?
am,
So
yeah.
the tables were turned then.
That's the best
I can't remember.
episode.
I can't remember what episode it was now, but it was a wonderful conversation. And yeah, like just start to listen. And like I say, I do one-to-one work, but I also do a missing piece monthly meet. All the information is on the website. I think it's the second Tuesday of every month. I just need to remind myself. But yes, have a look. And you can just come along. That's completely free, and just ask questions or sit back and relax. This is a really relaxed process. That's what I love about coaching. This is really a wonderful process to just be in this sort of environment and to really start to notice things that for many years we hadn't even been invited to notice. So yeah, reach out or email me if you have any questions. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Becca. And I'm just going to ask you one last thing before we finish. If you could just say one thing to my listeners to leave them with, what would that be?
That you're okay no matter how busy your brain is. It means nothing about you at all. And there's nothing to be fixed here because you're not broken. I know that's how I felt for many years. And so just to keep listening to this podcast, listen to my podcast, and sit back and just take the pressure off and just start to trust in life to be leading you, because it's no coincidence that people are listening to this podcast.
Thank you, Becca. That was amazing.